Yeah. Okay, this is kind of an unusual cleanup. And I work for Pennsylvania DEP. That shouldn't do that. When I worked for Pennsylvania DEP, we got into cleaning up Superfund sites, hazardous material sites mainly. But cleaning up unexploded ordnance site was something we really never did before. I was talking to a person down in Harrisburg, and we worked with the Tobyhanna Army Depot to Superfund. So they had several Superfund sites up there. And so we were working on the cleanup of the Superfund site. And a little bit on the unexploded ordnance that was on the site. This is mainly off the site here. And we started talking and saying, we've been thinking down Harrisburg of funding some cleanups. And we talked to the Army Corps of Engineers, who normally is the one that oversees all these cleanups here. They weren't going to get around to this, the start of this, about this year, 2016, 2015, before they even started. So what we did is, like we actually funded a lot of the what's called the remedial investigation or an assessment of the site, like how bad is the contamination. Of course, when you find something, you just don't let it there. You have to wait for, like a remedial action. You have to explode, you have to take care of it. And we did a feasibility study, as now we found out how bad the problem is, what's the best technology to clean it up. So that's how we got involved. And when you see the word FUDs, you get a lot of acronyms when you work with the state. And stop me if you got a question. Formerly used defense site, and what that means is that's not part of the current Army or current Department of Defense inventory. It's a part of the former military site where they may have sold it off to private interest or gave it, in this case, to the state park and the state game lands 127. Basically, just getting into like what happened up in Tobyhanna. It originally comprised 21,000 acres, and what they did is in 1919, you can't read any of that, but this can work for my benefit. In 1919, they started getting on the base. And the first thing they did was it was a temporary storage for TNT, and they stored up to 4 million pounds of TNT for about a year up there, and that was what their normal first thing that they had done there. They had ambulance corps there. They had tank practice there, and during World War I and World War II, this was an artillery range that was used for West Point, and quite a bit of the National Guard and regular Army troops came to Tobyhanna to use their range. And what you'll see, I don't want to forget this, it's because it's real important. If you go up Tobyhanna now, you pass by Tobyhanna, you're going to say, geez, how'd they ever use this as a firing range? There's trees all over the place. Well, in these days of World War I and probably World War II, a lot of this was clear-cutted. So like you'll see in that first picture, I can't go back to, but there'll be more here. You'll see a lot, there is trees, but a lot of this was pretty much clear-cutted place. And we have letters from people who wrote back. This was called Camp Summerall when it was 21,000 acres. And again, the main purpose of it had other purposes, but during World War I, World War II, it was mainly used as a training artillery range. And that was good because when they went overseas, a lot of these troops had to fire everything that's in the Army's inventory. And that means not just high explosive or fragmentation rounds. Those are like fragmentation rounds there. But they had to fire chemical rounds like mustard. They had to fire all kinds of nasty stuff, that may or may not go off. So luckily, at this particular range, we had to deal mainly with high explosive and fragmentation, and mainly what we had was 75 millimeter, which is, this is a 75 millimeter fragmentation round right here, and that's, you can pick it up with one hand. This is a 155 fragmentation round, and again, what they had, we have to chuck a giant shotgun shell there's like a thing, like a straw that goes down in here. It has powder in it. It's surrounded by a bunch of lead balls. When the fuse goes off, it burns down to the explosive down here, and it shoots off just like a shotgun shell, all these lead balls. And this is actually, if you want to take a look at it, that's what actually breaks off of these things when it's high explosive, and that's what they actually go as the lethal kind of thing for soldiers and stuff. So anyway, in 1949, 14,000 acres were deeded off to the Commonwealth Game Commission, and that went over to State Game Lands 127, and an additional 7,000 acres went to the Department of Forest and Waters, which became DCNR, and that's the current Tobyhanna State Park. Oh, anyway, just to give you an idea of the size of this.
John, should I turn the rest of the lights off?
Can you see okay? I can see fine, but
Can everybody
if you
see
think it's
okay?
better.
Mm-hmm.
This is the current Tobyhanna State, Tobyhanna Army Depot right here. You can see it like right around this little square right here, which is not bounded except by here. This is pretty much Tobyhanna State Park. If you ever go up there, you'll see Tobyhanna Lake. This is Gouldsboro Lake right here. Lake Watauga is right there. Just to give you an idea how big this place was, there's the Gouldsboro exit and the town of Gouldsboro here. This would be getting off this is 380 right here. This would be getting off at the Tobyhanna Army Depot off 380. And I believe 437 would be right around here. So you see a lot of the communities now that built up around here. So there's a lot more chance of exposure to all these unexploded ordnance rounds. But the point of this slide is just to give you an idea. Here's the current military base. If you've ever been up there, it looks pretty big. But here is what the military formerly owned under Camp Summerall. You can see how large this was to try to figure out, okay, how we can possibly assess and clean this up. The contractors we have was Weston, and Weston and some of the others actually, we mainly hired them for hazardous materials cleanup. Weston also specialized, oddly enough, in cleaning up unexploded ordnance. A lot of these guys were former Navy EOD people, and they retired from the Navy, and they made tons of money going into private practice as UXO, or unexploded ordnance technicians. So that's the size of, just to give you an idea of the size of the place. This is actually during the remedial investigation. We tried to find out, well, how bad is this? So what we did is, based on maps, based on visual things, we tried to figure out, okay, where are the firing points, where they shot the guns from, and where are the impact areas. And the impact areas at Tobyhanna are not hard to find if you really walk around the woods there, because it looks like the moon. There's like, even that this stuff didn't happen in 40, 50 years, excuse me, there's like craters that still exist up there. And if you walk in a former impact area, you'll, even if you have no idea something happened up there, you'll try to figure out, like, gee, something is really weird about this spot. And this is some of the old pictures, which I got from Tobyhanna Army Depot. Oddly enough, nobody seemed to have a problem that I have maps and information over there currently finding live rounds up there currently. But just to get these pictures that are probably over 50 years old, I had to go through about 3 layers of management from Tobyhanna, thinking that, gee, what happens if Al Qaeda gets a hold of these, something, I don't know. But this is some of the stuff that you can see in a lot of these, like that there's very, very little trees. You'll see occasionally, you'll see a tree, and the old type cannons that existed, almost like an F-troop thing. They were pretty much, like I said, you had 37 millimeter rounds, which are probably like about that big, and maybe about like round like that. They're the most dangerous ones because they're very unstable. They're very small. And you think that they're bullets if you pick them up, that there was nothing inside them. but they're very dangerous. The 75s, which are, that's a fragmentation round, like think of it like a shotgun shell, and the high explosive round, which is pretty much looks exactly like that with the nose cone on it, and they were made to explode. And again, they were a very dangerous weapon. This again, you can kind of see how bleak it was up there at the time of this, and they would have some of the troops when they had their training in the National Guard. I don't know, how they got off work like that even in those days, but they would actually march to Tobyhanna, and it might take them 2 or 3 weeks to get to Tobyhanna in the terrible weather, and then they would have however long they had to train. This is actually Fort Observer who on that pole, and what he's doing is he's directing the artillery fire onto a target. It seems like he maybe got a little bit better view. I was a Fort Observer myself in the National Guard. Obviously now you're not near the cannons, you're well away from them, close as you can get to the target, and you're directing artillery fire on it. This guy obviously is just trying to get a better viewpoint of where Chicago. This is a little bit newer here, cannon, and they're mainly, I believe, French made. You got, like I say, mainly it's in the millimeter range, and the French made some really good artillery force during World War I and possibly World War II. This is very sensitive here. Okay. And that's one of the guns in the recoil when it goes backwards here. Again, you'll see like that, a lot of these, this I don't think was horse-drawn. I think that's a later year. That probably was like mechanical trucks or something that got these around. But during World War I, a lot of these cannons were moved by mules and horses, and there's a good one of a horse here, and there's the cannons right there, and you kind of see some trees like right there, but it's pretty much, like I say, it seemed like it was very, very bleak at the time they were using this as an artillery range. And this is pretty much by Tobyhanna Lake from what we figure, like where they had the latrines and stuff like this, and they set up tents. So this is like where they mobilized to go out to the field. And again, you can see the horse-drawn, like cannons and the horses. And the one thing that we found a lot of up at Tobyhanna when they started doing the metal detectors was horseshoes. They were all over the place. I had a bag of horseshoes that were all rusty, and somehow I finally got rid of them, but I probably should have kept those. So like they're doing there is you're just getting ready to mobilize to go out to the field. Again, there's a Fort Observer there on a stick, and I believe they're taking a shot there, and that's the smoke you see. And there's the cannon right there, but it's not really too clear, but you can see a little better on the computer. And if anybody wants this, I mean, I can't give you, it's a PowerPoint presentation, so I could give it to you. This is, I believe this is latrines and stuff, and if you look at very, very early historical aerial photos, which we do on Superfund sites, there wasn't very much at all on like buildings as they exist now. These are kind of like probably pretty much the only buildings that existed on the entire base back in World War I and possibly World War II. And there's, I think that's the 3rd Field Artillery, 2nd Battalion. So that's, again, you see like how old these things are. And oddly enough, like when I first got involved with this, it's kind of like, geez, like how bad could this be if things would go back to World War I? Well, like these shells, it's too bad cars don't last like this, but some of these shells, they fail to go off, which I guess is better. They're not like cars, but they fail to go off. But if you set them off, I mean, they're just like almost like brand new. And you'll see this in the videos I got. But they tend to last, and there has been people killed. Like with World War no, Civil War cannonballs, their own cannonballs that had TNT or dynamite in there, that they would be drilling them. And one guy got killed who was actually a UXO person it's set up by the drill. And one person also like picking up stuff like this, it was a 40 millimeter grenade thing, and he thought it was like an empty thing, and it wasn't. And he was in class, and there was a bug on his desk, and he hit it with a bug with it, and the bug died, but he blew off his hand too. So it was kind of like, it was one of those things that you really gotta take seriously on this kind of stuff if you find it. There's another picture of that. When we first started finding out, like, okay, where do we even start on this? What we used is, this is a 1920s era map, and what it is there were several maps like this where you have, wow, this will be tough. Right here at the apex of this, that's the firing point. In other words, where the cannons were set up. And where they have the cannons set up, I want to focus efforts on contamination, the powder, possibly finding live rounds that they never shot off and buried. And there would be like these little bunkers, which you'll see. What they did was they had these masonry bunkers, 3 or 4 with each firing point, and they put the powder bags in there to separate it from where they were actually firing the guns, so there wouldn't be potential for explosion. And you can see like there's a firing point here, firing point there, and some firing points up in here. It's kind of tough to see, but and right around in these areas here we focused it on impact areas that, okay, this is most likely the places we're going to find rounds. And we say unexploded ordnance, this is the same thing that unfortunately, is being used in the Middle East now to like people will find this terrorists. And what they'll do is they'll put an IED on there, and it's an improvised explosive device, and they put it on a live round like that they find, and they'll use that to actually be the high explosive part. And what they do is set it off with their IEDs when something goes by. We prioritize, this is kind of a nice colorful picture, but it broke down the whole floods area into specifically units. Like right here was an impact, these are all impact areas based on what we found from maps and what we had in observations. Like when you go to these places, like I said, you can tell this is a former impact area because there's like these craters in the ground, and they're very, very obvious. We prioritize some areas, like right here, there's Poolsboro Lake right here, Lake Watauga. A lot of people live around here, a lot of new development, giant houses up there, if you've ever been up that way. We didn't expect to find too much in these areas. What we did is we cleaned up the areas first where there was possibly the worst potential for human exposure. So we didn't prioritize it mainly by where we find the most UXO. We prioritized that we clean up the areas where you might find very little UXO, but it was like a lot of human people up there that might get exposed. So what they're broken down to, all up and down here, which you can't really see too well, but like you could if you're on a computer here, is munitions response units. And again, that was done to prioritize areas. Like we wanted to prioritize this area, these little impact areas. We didn't ignore all this. That's like we finished this. We finished the rest of this particular area here. So these areas were strictly done based on the UXO people. And what we did is we had a team. We had our contractors, that was Weston. We had Army Corps of Engineers, who has really the expertise on handling these kind of sites, and we had EPA. So that was like we had a team, and it worked very well. First, the Army Corps never seen anything quite like this, so they were like, okay, thanks for your money, now you can go away. It was like, no, now you're spending a lot of our money, we're doing the oversight, but we will definitely listen to your expertise, which we did. They had a full-time person who was a 30-year UXO EOD person. They did work for the Army Corps of Engineers. So we obviously used his expertise. The interesting part of this is, and I don't know, can you read that at all? Like, I can't, my glasses. But what this does is, this was the Army, an official clearance saying, okay, based on our observations, this place has been cleared adequately and it can be used for any purposes. And this is back in 1947 or 1947, when the Army officially cleared this spot up. Now this I got from the Army Corps of Engineers just about like last month. And what they do is they have, when they're up there working, they don't work in the winter when there's snow cover, so they can't really do things safely. But as soon as spring rolls around, they go up there and start working. And this is a report. It's a little bit old, but not too far. It's like April 4 to April 8, 2016. Usually these are weekly reports. But the thing on this particular thing is that's just what's done in April, not from April to this point in time where they're actively working. So far, cumulatively, they cleared, remember how many acres this is so far, 21,000 acres. The total recovered UXO, and that's everything that explodes, is 6,584 rounds. And the munitions debris, that'd be munitions debris, which is kind of like just old shells that don't have no explosive thing in it, fragmentation, pieces of fragments. And what they do is they seal them up in sealed dumpsters, and they recycle this. They remelt it and use the metal. So what they have for the munitions debris is 921,028 pounds. So as you see, you know, like you're going to start this year, but so far, since we started early, well before my retirement in 2010, we've already cleared over 6,500 live rounds, and what we expect is there's probably going to be a lot more, probably up to 10,000 rounds. You know? So you're talking about every one of them is lethal, you know, so it is a serious cleanup when you see the cost here. Back in 2004 we started, and again we started the cleanup with our contractor Weston, and again all this is 100% complete, all the way down to the end there, which is 61%. But again, this would be at square one right down here if we let the Army Corps just start this year. During the RI, that's what we funded. We funded the entire RI. It was $3.3 million, and that's a hell of a lot of money. We cleared up the park and game lands, and what we did is we tried to focus on some very serious areas. What the Army Corps did immediately, because was this TCRA is a time-critical removal action. And what we did was we were on 7 Mile Road, which goes, that's the dirt road that goes from Gouldsboro to just about 437, I think it's 437, 4417, something like that, in Tobyhanna. And then, like, there's a trail that goes on there. It's a main trail. I went up the main trail with the Army Corps of Engineers. When they started looking at it, they, you know, like, it was really tough to put on the four-wheel drive vehicles to get up there. But people do go up there. The Army Corps guy, who's the EOD expert, says, I don't think we should wait any longer to clear this up, because this looks so dangerous, we shouldn't even be up here. And so they spent pretty much almost $1 million just to clean up on 7 Mile roads, which is kind of an isolated road in state game lands, but it's also one of those areas that's very commonly used by people. They open up the gates so you can actually go on the dirt road all the way from Gouldsboro, exit all the way to Tobyhanna, parallels 380. AOC 1 was, again, the Army Corps funded that for $3.3 million, and that was right up there by the Lake Watauga, Gouldsboro, or Gouldsboro Lake area, and there was quite a few people who lived up there. We did find unexploded rounds up there. As we found, we didn't expect too much, but you know, we did find enough that was a dangerous situation, and there was some like really nice houses up there, big development, and you know, again, a lot of people had no clue people who lived up Tobyhanna originally, like for years and years and years, and it was in their family, they knew all about this stuff. They knew not to touch this stuff. But there's like a lot of communities up there that, they sprung up around Gouldsboro, they sprung up around Tobyhanna, and a lot of commuting places, like where they commute to New York City and stuff. So there's a lot of new people and a lot more of a serious exposure, to this stuff. So bottom line is we spent close to 7.2 million. The Army Corps is going to spend 36.3 million. The total cost of this cleanup from 2004 to projected to 2018 will be 43.6 million. So again, it's a really big project. It was kind of fun to work with this. It was very unusual because nobody in the state ever did this really ever before. This is, like I say, a couple pictures like of what's currently going on in powder bag at a firing point. And what they did is they had 3 of these. The powder bags would be stored here to keep them isolated from the lighter guns and firemen, just for safety purposes. And if you go along some of the roads of Tobyhanna, you'll actually see these things, and you say, "Wow, that's what they are now." This is again for DEP and EPA. So, like, we focused also not only on cleaning up unexploded ordnance, but soil sampling. Right here, we're at, I don't know if it was an impact area or, we're in a crater or at a firing point, but that's where we focused our actual soil sampling. We did water testing too. We actually statistically determined like how much soil to get a representative sample of this particular area. And I'd be tested for a specific suite of organics for explosive debris and inorganics like lead, arsenic, copper, things like that, to see if it was above that. I'm going to compare the inorganics to the background. Hopefully I'm not running off too much on this. This is setting off stuff during, I believe, the remedial investigation. And that looks like, please don't use my cap pointer here. These look like 37s right here. These would be obviously the 75 millimeters and the 155 again. They're pretty much, these aren't high explosive rounds. These are, I don't know if you can't really tell, but these are pretty much fragmentation rounds. And obviously, even though they look empty, these guys wouldn't be blowing them up if there wasn't some explosive inside there. What they do is they get this detonation core, which is an explosive, it's self-controlled, and they got these oil well perforators, and they'll put 2, if they're just doing one, they put 2 on each particular unit. And what they do is they blow a focused hole in these units. Okay. This I thought was a good slide to do, because kind of like if you look at this right here, it's the same kind of round as this right here. It's a 155 fragmentation round. In other words, there's like a big old shotgun shell, pretty much. And the problem with this one is, look, see this thing right here? That actually, which showed it. There's where the stem came out of it. It looks like a big straw right out of here. And beneath this is a layer of explosive that would probably go from about right there all the way down. And so these things look safe, and if you pick them up in the field, they might have a layer of dirt, and you say, oh, this is a kind of empty and it has dirt inside it, but it's going to make a real nice paperweight. People have done that. But this could do a lot of damage, and it could be actually lethal, even though it's not that much explosive in there. This is one of the things we used up there was pretty much a new kind of thing for them. It was like a remote control detonator that would set off the det cord at a distance, and you turn a key. And I got to do this a couple of times. And you have people controlling a circle that were obviously a safe distance, but they would have to secure it, according to the fragmentation round of the round. Fragmentation distance of a round that they were blowing off, and you press the 2 buttons at one time to set the explosion off. This is our video camera. They've never done this before anywhere. We set up the video camera to say, it was my idea to say, okay, why don't you get some videos of this? Just set up a video camera and just turn it on and go away and see what happens, you know? And this thing did survive the entire years of time we had up Tobyhanna. But as you'll see, there's reasons why it was duct taped and tied to the trees and all kinds of things to keep it stable. There's more. But even with sandbags and stuff, you know, you could see like that after the detonation, you could have chunks, you know, like fragments that went up in the tree. And sometimes you would, I have pictures, you know, I have tons of pictures of the cleanup, that some of these sandbags, full sandbags, would be 20, 30 feet up in the branches of a big tree. This is after an explosion of probably 155 at the crater right there. And what they do after the detonation is they go down in the crater and they use their magnetometer, I think he has it right there, and they check it out to see if, okay, is there any debris, so they clean out the debris. But they want to make the main thing is they want to make sure that there's nothing else lying down there. Just because they blew off, say, some rounds there still might be something else buried. So don't recheck the area just to make sure that it actually is clear. And that's, for that part of it, that's it. But now, let's see, there's another, I got some videos here, which is really the thing I like. Okay. Ah, there it is. No, can't have that. Okay, and this shows, what these show is from the RI, which we started with, the remedial investigation to find out how bad the situation is, to the actual cleanups. And Weston, our contractor, made a video of this. It's getting a little bit old now, but you know, it's kind of nice to watch it. And they're going to make a new one, and I'm going to get a copy of that when they do have it there. This is a venting explosion here, which are kind of like in 2004. And there's a bunch of things that were found. Again, every one of them had stuff in there. And this is a 75. Again, it's a high explosive round, and you can see like the configuration of it, kind of like just like if that had a nose cone. That's what that looked like. And what they do is they put sandbags on to control the amount they have to secure. And he's checking to see if there's any. They'll pick up any debris from the explosion and check to see if anything else is there. This was, like I say, near houses where we found this. Like AOC 1 is in the vicinity of residents. They put a 1/2 inch plywood down. Then what they do is they put sandbags down. Depending on what they find, you know, they might have up to 400 sandbags. And they're getting ready to explode that particular round here. I find it amazing that that video camera actually survived all this. And you can see like a lot of these things, they look like, gee, there can't be anything in there, but they are. Those guys are yelling fire in the hole, if you can hear them, when they're ready to blow off things. And there is 360 degrees security around these. They're not in a dangerous spot, but this reduces, because the 155 high explosive round, whoops, there's a 75 there, and I can't go back to 75, and then there's the 155. It's 400 bags there. And the camera made it through. And that's it.
Thank you.
I'm not sure about if it had very much historical significance, but it's kind of, thought that was pretty cool, about what the Army did back then. And it's kind of like interesting that they talked about how clear this was, and they gave it off to the state park, and they gave it off to the state game lands. They said, yeah, use it for any purposes, we looked it over, there's no danger here. And so far, there's over 6,500 live rounds that were found, and we're still not done.
John, you're gonna speak next month, right?
Yeah, on geology. I
On
know stuff
geology.
about that.